Yes, this is Mantar, ladies and gentlemen, live and in color from Omaha, Nebraska, on the radio show In Your Head Wrestling. Stay tuned every week, every Friday night. The show is live and in color, ladies and gentlemen. All you got to do is turn on your radio dial, and you will find the channel. So if you want to be entertained, you want to hear some superstars, you want to talk to some superstars, you want to hear some great stories, just tune in to In Your Head Wrestling Live.
All right, and welcome to In Your Head Wrestling Radio. I am the internet icon, handsome Jackie Jones, along with my right-hand man,
1-inch biceps, the power goat. Bah! How about that?
That was pretty powerful. Now, since this is actually, I was really looking forward to this show, so I have a special introduction here already. So just 1 second, let's make sure I got it here. This is Jackie Jones and his partner OIB, coming to entertain all in the IWC. Welcome to the show, PN News. Sit back and listen to his wrestling views. Don't matter if you're skinny or fat like a balloon, put on your headset and join the chat room. Enough of me rapping, let's hear Paul instead. Welcome everybody to In Your Head. Yo baby, yo baby, yo!
Yo baby, yo baby, yo. Wow, that was better than me, I think, dude. Way to go.
Oh, excellent. I felt inspired and it was good.
Wow, yeah. That's wicked, man. Excellent. Thanks for the major introduction. I'm happy to be on the show.
Excellent. Not everyone gets that.
Well, I really feel pleasure there. Really feel great about that. Thanks a lot.
I was just hoping you just wouldn't hang up.
I just about did, man. I'm fed up. I'm going.
Excellent. Nope.
No, good stuff.
Mm-hmm. Now I know how long did you wrestle before you became PN News?
I started in '87, so I was around for about 4 years before I got the PN News gig.
Yeah. Now, did you have any input in PN News, or was that like an idea they had for you?
No, actually, the idea of the rapping wrestler was my idea. I approached them with it, had pictures taken and everything like that. Got a dark match, and I ended up. Like I said, I came up with the gimmick, and then it was Dusty who actually came up with the name PN News.
Mm-hmm. Now, I mean, I've watched wrestling since as far as I can remember, and I remember PN News. You were really over, and it was funny because I started watching some matches. Now, I'd watched it when it happened at the time, but then I watched it again, recently, and I was like, oh my God, you were really over. Another thing before I get too far was, I don't know if you have something to comment on this, but I think wrestling was more over back then, where like all the good guys like people really loved, as opposed to today it's like a lot of guys get booed or like there's no reaction.
Yeah, I think the wrestling characters were a lot different back then. The heel babyface paradigm was a lot bigger back then. Now it's harder to tell who the babyface and the heel is. I mean, ever since the what you want to call the NWO came onto the scene, it was hard to tell the babyfaces from the heels. As far as PN News, the gimmick being over, yeah, I mean, it was really over down in the South and all over the place in the country until I got up to places in the Northeast like Philadelphia, New Jersey. They kind of booed me, but they didn't take too kindly to many baby faces up there. So
yeah, that was like the heel country.
Yeah, it's heel country. So, I mean, I wasn't offended. Everybody was basically getting booed. So it's just one of those things. You deal with it. You keep your head down and you just keep working.
Yeah. You think also, like, in those areas, because I would think a rapping character would be more popular in the Northeast as opposed to South. But do you think it was areas that were maybe more well-versed in rap, in hip-hop?
Yeah, maybe so. I just think that the the character itself was just too babyface-ish for the Northeast. I eventually, initially, I really wanted the gimmick to be kind of a heel, but Dusty insisted that we do the babyface thing, and it wasn't my position. I was just, my position to say otherwise. I mean, I was just happy to be on the roster and have a job,
Mm-hmm. So when you say like a more heelish version, would that be like a gangster rapper or like how did?
Yeah, it was kind of before gangster rap came along, but yeah, I just thought, I'd been in Europe. I'd been working up to that point. I mean, when I broke into the job, I was working babyface, but I only worked babyface for about 6 months, and then after that, I turned heel, and then for 3.5 years, I was working heel, and when I talk 3.5 years, I was working 350 times a year at that point, so. Yeah, I just, I at the time I preferred heel, and I felt that I was a better heel, So, as I said, yeah, it would have been like maybe I would have created gangster rap had I gone heel.
That's very true. And that what was your relationship with Dusty, who we unfortunately just lost not too long ago?
Yeah, sorry for his family. I'm sorry for the family is lost. At first it was good, but in the end it kind of soured. He made a lot of promises to me, and he never stuck to his promises, unfortunately. Which you can't get along with everybody, but that's just the way things go.
What kind of things were promised to you? Like,
Well, when he said I remember when I wasn't really happy with the contract, because it was like the beginning of May, and it was like me and Johnny B. Bad, Scott Hall, what was his name, Van Hammer, and like the Patriots. We all got our contracts in Austin, who was Stunning Steve at the time. We all got our contracts like on the same day. We all went in on a Friday, and I was the only one who didn't sign right away. And I got home like 2 hours later, and there was a message on my phone saying from what's his name? Can't think of it right now. Well, Dusty's assistant at the time. Anyway, he goes, hey, call me. You call the office. You come back. This is the only contract you're going to get. There's going to be no second chances. This and that, and you have to, that's all you're going to get, And I said, oh, I was thinking, wow, okay, that's pretty serious. Well, I had to be in Atlanta at the Omni to do a rap. I was just rapping. I wasn't even wrestling on the card, and I had to be at the Omni, so I saw Dusty in the hotel lobby, and I said, Dusty, I don't agree with this contract. And so he goes, well, we can't talk right now. Let's talk at the Omni when we get there. So we get there, and he takes me into this one of Ted's lounges there, and there's golden taps there. Everything's pretty impressive. There's a huge liquor selection on the bar, and it was just me and him sitting there on these leather couches. And he goes, Pia News, I just want to tell you, baby, you're like my firstborn child. You're the first gimmick I'm bringing in here since I took the book over, and we want to go with this, and we really want to make this thing work out, and if it doesn't work out, then we're going to try something else, if you will. So sometimes you just gotta trust somebody, you know what I mean? And he was putting on he's putting it on pretty thick with me, and of course I fell for it, and I trusted him. And when things, as you said before, the character was getting over, and this stuff was getting over. Well, it was getting over a little bit too strong, maybe, and it started to cause a riff. You know what I mean? So I just tried to get along with everybody, but I'm not a clique person, so I didn't hang out with the clique. I kind of, I hung out with the cool guys, so the guys I found are more down to earth. So I just it just didn't work out. And when I felt like I felt like we should have done something, gone in another direction with the character, and he never did it. And then some crap took place. around Christmas time that wasn't even me, but it got put on me, and I took the heat, and I was gone by the time my first year ran out on my contract, because it was like a 2-year rollover. It was, so the first year, if they kept me on in the first year, then my contract doubled, and I would have stayed on for a second year at WCW.
Yeah. So,
So
what was that happened? I don't know if you want to talk about it or not.
yeah, I've got no problem. There was we were on the first trip WCW ever made to Europe in England, and I was in a dressing room with Terry Taylor and a couple other guys, and well, we were at this was in Sheffield, England, and anyway, I was out of the dressing room, and Terry comes up to me and he says, "Hey, man, I'm missing any money. Do you see anybody go in the dressing room?" I said, no. So I went back, and first thing I did was went right back to the dressing room, and I checked my bag, and my cash was missing,
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm shitting myself, and there's cameras all over the place. Christ's sakes, we're in England already. Back then, there was closed caption things all over the place. So I went to Grizzly Smith. I said, Grizz, we need to get something sorted out. My money's missing. Terry's lost his money. Can they check? Can the security check the camera? He said he'd look into it and do that stuff. I don't know. He said they didn't see anything. Blah blah blah, whatever. But all of a sudden, I get back to the hotel and I'm drinking in the bar. Well, I didn't have a credit card at the time. I just gotten right before we left for England. I just got a secured credit card in the mail, so I had like $500 on that. So I had some drinks I had the drinks in the bar, and I just charged it to my room, and then the next morning I paid on my secured credit card. Well, the word came out, everybody's talking, and we're at the airport and all that stuff. Guys are whispering. Well, on the flight back, it was Bill Kazmaier. He goes, I go, God, everybody's treating me like I just gave one to the neighbor's cat, and he goes, you don't know? And I said, well, no, I don't. He goes, well, they think you stole Terry's money, and I was like, you got to be kidding me, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's how it started. So and then a couple of days later, we're back in Atlanta, and then I got into a fisticuff with Rick Rude, and I mean, the next morning we were both a little bit drunk and stuff and whatnot, and me and Rick Rude got in a little fight. But the next morning we were talking to each other, and we were just trying to get our story straight, because neither one of us wanted to get fired for fighting, Mm-hmm. So we just got our story straight, and anyway, so what happened? So what they said is, I stole the money, and Rick caught me in his bag or whatever, and he fought me over the deal, and which was, all of it was just fabricated. There was no truth to it, and I kind of got hang out in the kangaroo court. So my dates for WCW, I was under guaranteed money, so my dates for WCW then started to tail off, but they still had to pay me. And by the May, when my contract ran out, I was gone. But the crazy thing about the whole deal was, the day I went on TV, the day I was on TV, the first day I appeared on television, by the time I got home, I was already on the road, and by the time in fact, it was the night I signed my contract in the Omni. I got back, and there's a message on my machine, and it's Strongbow. It's Jay Strongbow. He goes, Vince loves the gimmick. He wants you to start immediately. Call Pat Patterson on Monday morning.
Oh wow!
And I'm like, oh my God, you know what I mean? Had I just held out a little bit longer, I'd have been in New York, and I think that they would have done a better job of actually preparing the gimmick, because I struggled with some of the raps at the beginning, because I had no playback speaker by the ring, so my music would start, and then I'd start my rap, and my voice would come out like a half a second later on the microphone in these big arenas, and it would just throw me off, you know what I mean? And it basically took me a couple weeks to really get used to that, and then once I got that down, then my raps got better, but at the beginning, when you're not prepared for that, it was, it just really threw me off. And I just think Vince and all that would have worked a little closer with me on that aspect of the gimmick.
I definitely think it's a gimmick that would have fit in WWE better, and also like they would have got behind and marketed. And plus,
Absolutely.
you're a big athletic guy, which is always
Oh,
big
thanks.
in the. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, thanks about. Yeah.
You're welcome. Did you
Yeah, yeah.
did you write the raps?
Yeah, I did. You know what I mean? I'm not. I'm not exactly. I'm not exactly from the hood. So it was. I did the best I could. Yeah, but I rapped it. I had a guy. I had one of the guys. I had a young man that assisted me on a couple of them, but then he took off and he was going out to Hollywood to work on TV and films out there. So after that, I had to do everything on my own then.
Mm-hmm. Now, when we had Axl Rotten on years ago, I was just say before he passed away, but obviously before he passed away.
Everybody's dead. It's just unbelievable.
Yeah, it's too bad. And he had talked about like you. I don't know if did you guys have matches. I knew like there was a planned match at one of the pay-per-views or Clash of Champions. I don't think took place.
No, the match didn't take place. He came in. I don't know what happened to him right there, but I know he came in and we were working some matches. I was set to do some stuff with the one man gang,
Mm-hmm.
and then he got released. I was going to do like a little run with him, and then he got released, and then he came in as basically the replacement to the one man gang, and then it just and he wasn't there very long either, and then he was gone. So that kind of put me on hold, so.
Mm-hmm.
Which was a shame, you know what I mean? I was waiting for some kind of run. I needed a real angle to, get the whole thing over, I mean I was doing stuff like Dusty had the dewdrop in, and Paulie Dangerous. I gotta say about Paul Heyman. I mean, when I did an interview with him in the ring, I'll tell you what, he led me all the way. He was fantastic, as far as leading somebody where he wanted him to go in an interview. I mean, I really got to give him credit on that.
Yeah. Now, did you guys have a good relationship? Because is that what led to your later down the road having the run in ECW?
Yeah, because we did. In fact, it was in Jersey, the Meadowlands. We did a couple mixed tags with Missy Hyatt as my partner,
Mm-hmm.
and we did the things. And I had guys in the back. I won't mention any names, but I had guys in the back coming in who didn't like Paulie coming up. Hey, man, when you hit him with the splash, kill him, dude. You gotta, break his legs. Everybody's telling me to do this crap. You know what I mean? And I think Paulie was shitting himself a little bit, and
Mm-hmm.
I looked after him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he appreciated that, and he after the match he was like, oh man, thank you, and then that's the first thing he said when I showed up at Philadelphia. That's the first thing he said was, hey dude, I remember you looking after me there. And so that's why, that's how I basically got. And then I went in and did my, let Spike squash me in less than a minute, and that was, to just show that I didn't have an ego. You know what I mean? And that's how I got my little run with ECW.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, I think that's a lot. A lot of people have bad things to say about Paul, but I think that's a good show of character to remember. It's somebody did something for me.
yeah, I mean, I can't vouch for his total character.
Right.
I mean, there's some things I don't appreciate about him, but I mean that I mean. Yeah, but I mean, do I have any real issues with Paulie? No, none whatsoever that I can think of.
Yeah. Well, what was that ECW run like? What was backstage like in the company itself?
It was all right. It was kind of excuse my language, but it was kind of a clusterfuck.
Yeah.
But
Just like
but at the same time, there was a lot of talent there. It was it was a different product than anybody else was doing with all that. It started that hardcore thing big time.
Mm-hmm.
There was a big run. Everybody had to go through tables and use chairs and stuff like that. I think it was a little bit too overkill. But backstage, I mean, there was a lot of shit going on. Yeah, with drugs and whatnot, and somas and all that stuff. And I just tried to stay to my own. I've got a hip problem that still bothers me today, and it just came out then, and I was really struggling. I'd go in the bathroom to tie my boot because I was struggling so bad. I was in so much pain to tie my left boot. I just I'd go in the bathroom, kind of hide when I was when I was tying my boot because I didn't really want to see me struggle like that. So but yeah, a lot of, I mean, like I said, there's a lot of guys there. When I got to work with everybody that was anybody. Sabu, and I worked with Van Dam, Mike Awesome, Rhino. And then of course I had the little run with the Baldies, and that was a fun gimmick to do. I enjoyed doing the interviews on the Baldy thing and working with Vito and Tony and those guys. It was I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, I know. Intro here, 1 Inch Biceps, always a big fan of the Baldies.
Oh yeah, I love the Baldies. Yeah.
Wow, you know what? We appreciate it. Yeah, I thought the Baldies was, like I said, it was really fun. That whole gimmick. Based on the movie The Warriors, basically, and I think everybody involved enjoyed it too. It was great, and as I said, it was a good time. But with my hip bothering me the way it was, I couldn't enjoy the run as much as I would have liked to.
Yeah. What about matches with New Jack?
Yeah, it was like working with everybody else out there. I mean, I thought he was intense, but everybody was. I remember we were at a theater in Marietta in Georgia, full house, and they were basically, it was a loser leave town match, but I didn't even know it. You know what I mean? That was them getting rid of me because I'd moved back to Omaha and my flights were more expensive than just coming from Atlanta. So and I wasn't imperative, and they brought in somebody basically to replace me there, and the deal was New Jack came off the second floor balcony onto me, and I was laying on the table outside, and basically I didn't make the count, and when the table just shattered, and the leg from the table shot up through the press board, and it ripped the back of my head open. You know what I mean? I still got the scar on there, and ripped the back of my head open. And I remember me and New Jack's like cutting off a little bit of the skin under the little fat underneath the skin and stuff like that. And we threw some super glue on it, and there it was. You know what I mean? Playing a little doctor. I just didn't feel like going into the hospital, but the super glue is sterile anyway. So I was safe. You know what I mean?
PN News and New Jack do have a thing in common. I was thinking about is, he played the music throughout his match, but you used to have the music play like near the end of your match.
That's right. As soon as I went up for that broken record, they used to start that music. I'd put my hand up in the air and I'd call for the music, and they'd start that music, and I'd hit the splash, and the count was going, and that music, the music was playing already. Well, they were making the 3 count.
Yeah.
So
I thought it was
that was pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. Do you know whose idea that was?
That was Dusty's idea, as far as I know.
Mm-hmm. This is definitely original.
Yeah.
Inchman, you got a question from Facebook or the chat room?
Yeah, I got one from Facebook. Al Oob, he wants to know, what are your memories on Steve Austin?
I did a couple matches. I did the match that I always try to forget is in Baltimore. It was that scaffold match, because I just felt that was the most rottenest match I've ever been in my life. And you look at all the talent that was in that match. Austin was in it and stuff, and Bobby Eaton, one of my favorite all-time wrestlers, Bobby Eaton, was there. And we just, the scaffolding was so damn high, and Dusty said, listen, guys, I know how high it is. I don't expect anybody to fall. And that's when they came up with the gimmick about the flags on each end. And, but even as he said that, Bobby Eaton went, I'll do it. I'll take the fall. And I'm like, we all just kind of, all of us just looked at Bobby all at once and like, you're nuts. I mean, because, it was like 3 stories up in the air at least, and it was ridiculous. But Austin was in that, and he worked hard. And then we did a time limit TV draw for the TV belt when he was holding it. And, I remember that match, and that was a pretty good match. And he was a tremendous talent. You knew it back then. You could see it. He worked hard, and there was a lot of intensity. All due respect, and of course when he was in the WCW, then he came up with that then he came up with that gimmick. When they got that Stone Cold gimmick on him, boy, did that work! You know what I mean? That took off. So and I remember seeing him after that was taken off, and I visited the New York WWF show in in Germany. I can't remember where it was. I think it might have been Nuremberg or somewhere like that, because I was living in Austria at the time. And I remember talking to him, and I just said, Steve, I'm happy for you. I thought that's, it's a great stuff. You know what I mean? Steve and I never really hung around together or anything like that. But I saw the talent there. There was a lot of talent there. Everybody knew it.
Mm-hmm. There's, I know it was kind of a down period in wrestling, but there was a ton of talented guys in WCW at that time.
Oh, absolutely. There was just a tremendous amount of guys, talent. Didn't know where to go. You know what I mean? The territories were starting to dry up and stuff like that. So, WCW was bringing guys in right and left. You know what I mean? And as you said, it was a dry time in the business, but the guys had to go somewhere to work. And Ted really wanted, Ted Turner wanted to make that product work. So.
Mm-hmm. Who were some of the guys like you traveled with?
It just depended. I knew Scott Hall from our time together in Germany in the late '80s and '90. We spent 2 years on the road in Germany for the CWA Auto Vance. So I knew him. So when he came in, me and him in Dallas and would work together. And I knew Matt Bourne from Portland. So Matt and I would we'd get in cars together. Used to get in cars with sometimes then some of the guys would rent a van, and it would be like Robert Gibson and Ricky Morton and the Armstrongs and those guys. And it was absolutely fantastic traveling with those guys. They were, like I said, they were the most Tracy Smothers. They were the most down to earth guys on the team, So I enjoyed traveling with those guys.
I bet you'd hear some amazing stories. I think traveling with those guys.
Oh my God, Ricky Morton always. It'd be every night you'd almost hear the same thing from Ricky Morton. He'd say, he'd go, "I haven't slept since 1984," and it used to crack me up. You'd laugh every time. You know what I mean? What I really gained from riding with those guys was actual knowledge. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I was so fortunate to be around so many talented individuals in my career. It's just not even funny. From the time when I started in the AWA, with being around like guys like Kurt Hennig and stuff like that, and listening to him and him taking me under his wing a little bit the short time I was there. And then I went out to Portland, and I was around guys like the Cuban Assassin and Dave Sierra and Len Denton, and Buddy Rose came out, and Buddy and I tagged up with a wrestler named Mike Golden. I really learned so much out there. And then when I finally got over to CWA in Europe, then I was around guys like Dave Finlay and Tony Sinclair and some of those guys and the English guys. Those guys and Dave Taylor and stuff. There was a lot of knowledge there that I picked up. You know what I mean? And I think it was after I left the WCW is really when I developed who I was. I was already wrestling in Europe as Cannonaball Grizzley, and Cannonaball Grizzley kind of became my persona, and that's who I was. And I got to travel around the world. I've been to 50 different countries, as Cannonball Grizzley, basically, So it's been a great ride.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now, when you left before WCW, they were starting to go away, but there still were the territories you mentioned, Portland and
yeah.
And then when you leave, I would think all those are gone. So how different was the wrestling landscape?
Yeah, well, it changed. Like I said, there wasn't as many places to go. It went from I got in right at the back of that, and if you think about it, it went from a lot of guys making a living out of the business to fewer guys making a living out of the business. Mm-hmm. And then when the new century came around, then it became even fewer guys really actually making a living out of the business. And nowadays you've got guys, basically everybody wants to get that break, but most people are just, they're hobby wrestlers, you know what I mean? And before, when everybody was making a living from the job, now guys were doing it as a side job, and they kind of, that kind of took a little the sparkle away from the industry as far as I was concerned. Yeah, it was kind of a shame, and now there's even fewer guys really truly making a living out of the sport.
Yeah. No,
So, go ahead.
I was gonna say, what is there a difference? I say, what's the difference? What is there a difference between wrestling in front of a European audience and wrestling in front of an American audience?
The European fans are more appreciative than the American fans. Nothing against the American fans, anybody that knows how to work can get anything out of a crowd, but and I enjoyed working, the territories, and I enjoyed working for WCW and ECW. But crowds in England, are in Germany and Austria, places like that, and even in France, they're just, I mean, they're, yeah, like I said, they're just more appreciative. And it's the funny thing, like in Germany and Austria, they don't allow kids at the shows. They deem it too violent. So you have to be 14, 15 years old, and most, city ordinances don't allow anybody under 14 or 15 years old to actually get in the show. So the actual crowds are actually older crowds. I mean, they were older crowds back then, and there'd be prominent people coming to these things, mayors and city council people, and it used to be a big event to come to wrestling matches, and when I was wrestling in the 90s, in the 80s and 90s, in the CWA, we'd wrestle, and the funny thing about it is we'd wrestle like a month or 2 months in the same town, in the same venue, and we'd probably have, we'd have full houses maybe 3 or 4 days a week, and then the other days was a little bit more of a struggle. But yeah, easy. I mean, maybe it was just because I had really truly learned how to work better, or I just find. I mean, for me now, wrestling is just, it's like breathing. You know what I mean? I don't even have to think about it. It just comes natural to me. So it's muscle memory, I guess.
When you're wrestling in front of the same crowd like that so often, do you have to make sure you're not doing the same like finishes?
Absolutely. Yeah, you have to change your matches up, and that to me, kids today, they don't know. They don't know what it's like. Everybody's in the dressing room and they're talking 3 hours to do a 15-minute match or a 10-minute match, and I'm like, what the hell are you doing? And and we back in the day, I mean, I worked a guy hundreds of times in England, a guy named Robbie Brooksides, who's now works for NXT down there. He's one of the trainers, and we never talk. You know what I mean? They tell us who's going over. We wouldn't talk. You know what I mean? And we'd go out there and we'd tear the house down. And it's hard to do that with a lot of these younger kids now, because they wouldn't know where to begin. So but fortunately, I mean, I've trained a few guys over here, helped train some guys in the EWA Austria. We had a training school in Vienna. Michael Kovac, who was running the thing, and he brought me along, and I kind of did some advanced courses, and I was kind of teaching kids psychology and letting them go over matches and giving them my viewpoint of what I think and how a match should go and everything like that. And when I'd work with them, I'd say, okay, guys, this is the finish. You got 5 minutes to talk over the finish. Don't talk over anything else. Just go on there and get the match done, And so what happened is you got a lot of these kids in Austria that, have only been around for a couple of years, but they can wrestle their socks off because they can actually go in there and do the job without having to talk about it. And it's just, it's proud, you know what I mean? I'm just proud of those kids for being able to do that,
Mm-hmm.
So, it's the industry is it's just changed so much.
Mm-hmm. Happy here in the chat room asks, what is the EWA Ironman Championship?
It was basically a hardcore tournament. It was basically, you'd start out in one, and it happened all in one night. So when I was winning the Ironman, I'd have to work like 3 matches in one night, all of them a different kind of hardcore match, whether it was a chain match, ladder match, or a cage match, or, you usually finish with a cage match or something like that. But all the matches on the bill that night would be some kind of a gimmick match and gimmick hardcore match. And so you had to do 3 different types of gimmick matches to get to that, to be in that final. You know what I mean? And so, I mean, I was EWA, I was EWP, Ironman, and I was like multiple Ironman for the CWA back in the 90s. So, and each town you do each tournament, because the towns were tournaments. So they were called catch cups, and you'd have the catch cup tournament, and then like on the last night or the second last night, depending on if there was a championship match or not in that tournament, there was the catch cup final. And so the 2 guys with the most amount of points, there was a point system, 3 points for a win, 1 point for a draw, and no points for a loss. So at the end of the tournament, 2 guys with the most points would wrestle for the catch cup, and then the 3rd and 4th place guys would wrestle for second and third place. So and we used to get these massive trophies. But then the Ironman would be like a special night somewhere on a Saturday to fill up the house or something like that. They'd have a special night in the tournament itself, and so we used to do that, and it was a lot of fun. You know what I mean? And I'd already had a lot of experience doing hardcore matches. We called them street fights back then. Now nowadays they call them hardcore matches, I guess. So,
well, what's let's see, what's the hardest gimmick match to work? To like how you would say successful match?
I dislike chain matches and bull rope matches. I'm not a big fan of those. Those were, you're limited what you can do when you're chained together, and then when you got that chain, you got to really be careful, not to knock somebody's teeth out or anything like that, because that chain just flopping around. Yeah, you got to be careful. You got to draw it in. You got to get that right. So it limits you in what you're capable of doing. So that's for me. Those were the hardest gimmick matches.
Yeah.
Dusty Sir loved his bull rope matches.
Yeah, he did. That bull rope stuff. I mean, those guys, and even in like when I was over here in CWA, Otto always had a cowboy on the team, and that was his gimmick match, was the bull rope match. You know what I mean? Scott Hall came over, and he was called Texas Scott. And then you had John Layfield. He was over here, and they called him I don't know. They called him John Hawk. Texas John Hawk, and there was always a cowboy on the team. So, and always had the bull rope.
Now, a bull rope match, you don't have to drag him to the 4 corners. Or do you?
We did the 4 corner thing.
Okay.
A lot over here. Yeah, you have to pad all 4 corners.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, to win the match. We did that here. Yeah.
I remember. Yeah. I think there was like a 10-year stretch. Anytime I saw one of those matches, every time the ending would be, the heel would be dragging the guy around, the face would secretly hit the 3 behind him, and then when they got the 4th, they'd fight, and then the baby face would
jumps over and does that thing. That was always a good finish. My favorite gimmick match to work is I used to work these coal miners glove matches out in Portland with Cuban Assassin, later Top Gun, and stuff like that, and. We used to have some great matches, and going up, the glove was up on the pole, and then whoever got the glove got to use it. You know what I mean? So, to get that pop, you'd usually let the babyface get the glove. You get the glove, and then the heel would Pearl Harbor him, and then he'd take the glove and he'd go to town using the glove. And then when that glove finally went on the hand, and it was the headshot, and that was all. That was all she wrote. Katie barred the door. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that one's kind of been forgotten in time. I think the coal mine.
Yeah, it's a shame because I loved working those matches. I really did. That was as I said, it was my favorite match. I like money on the pole. I like everything on that pole in that corner, and trying to fight to get on the corner. And I remember getting up there and like the babyface is climbing up from the outside and you're climbing up from the inside. And then, he blocks. I go to grab his head. He makes a block and he runs my head into the pole once, twice, third time. And then I'd take that big back bump from the top of the rope out into the middle of the ring, man. Oh my God. Talk about the heat that would get. It was just insane, man.
Mm-hmm. I was gonna say, if you like the pole matches, you would have done well if you ever worked for Vince Russo.
Yeah, I never did work for Russo. I never got that opportunity.
He was
maybe one day.
Itchman, another question from Facebook or the chat?
I got one from the chat room. Billionaire Ted wants to know, what was Don Owens like as a promoter?
Don Owens is the reason I stayed in the business. He was probably the best promoter of his era that I ever worked for. You know what I mean? He was great. And on Saturday nights on TV, when we did our TVs on Saturday nights, and I was working heel, he'd come out and he'd be giving me a babyface introduction, and I'm kind of, I'm like, God, Don really liked me for some reason. Don Owens really, really liked me. There was a point when I was working babyface out there, and my time was winding up, and Lenny goes, well, I'm going to try and get him down to Tennessee, maybe up to Calgary and stuff like that. And Don goes, Jesus Christ, Lenny, you ever think about turning the kid heel? And boom, 2 weeks later, I was rocking it as a heel, and Chris Colt was my manager. So,
what was your name then?
I was the Avalanche.
Oh,
I was Paul. I started in AWA as Paul the Avalanche New. I went out to Portland, so I was one of many avalanches in the job. How original, eh?
Now, I know you said you weren't in AWA for a very long time, but what was it like, being in AWA and Vern Gagne? Do you have any memories of him?
It was, for me, because I just started in the business, and as a kid growing up in the Midwest, AWA is what I saw on Sunday mornings. It came on KCAU TV in out of Sioux City, Iowa, and I just I after church or before church, I'd sit there and watch. I'd watch Greg Gagne, and I'd watch Jumpin' Jim Brunzell. I got to see Jesse Ventura and all those guys. It was insane, and for me it was big. So it was. I've never been a person that I'd say that I've idolized anybody else. But if I could ever say that I was a little bit overwhelmed at the beginning, I was overwhelmed. I wasn't idolizing these guys. Mm-hmm. However, Ray Stevens was there at the time, and he had the book. And nowadays these kids, they don't do it anymore. But we were taught, and I teach my kids this. You go into the dressing room, you shake everybody's hand. You introduce yourself and you shake everybody's hand. Your cordial. You do that stuff. And I remember shaking everybody's hand. And I came up to Ray, and Ray was the last guy, and that I said, Ray Stevens. I said, it's a pleasure to meet you. I remember watching you when I was a kid. And the whole dressing room just fell out laughing, right? Because that's the biggest rib ever. Yes, if you ever, you're driving down the car and you're talking to guys, right. And he might only be 2 years older than you. And he goes, you know what? I remember my dad taking me to wrestle matches and watching you as a kid. You know what I mean? And it's just like the biggest rib ever. And this was my first match, so I had no idea that I was actually ribbing Ray Stevens, the booker at the time, so, but it was quite hilarious.
How did he take it?
Yeah, he laughed. He knew I didn't, he knew I was, I didn't mean it as a rib, you know what I mean? He knew it, you know what I mean? I was like, what the hell did I say?
That's pretty awesome. See, anything else there? There's a lot of questions here in the chat room, Inch Man.
Mm-hmm. I got one from Kyle.
Come on, 1-inch biceps. I've had amino acids bigger than you. Come on.
Uh-oh. Got one from Kyle Spears here. He wants to know, do you have any new gimmicks that you're coming up with, or any desire to be in the professional wrestling world?
Well, I desire. I've been, this isn't a comeback for me. I've been wrestling for 30 years, and I'm still doing it. The body's rejecting it sometimes, but I still try to do it. I have good days and bad days. I'm going to be wrestling here in England on the 1st of July. I'm in Yarmouth, out on the east coast of England, And then the next day I'm down in Norwich at the Epic Theaters there, and it's we're taping a TV pilot for wrestling, and Scott Hall and Ted DiBiase will be over for that.
Oh, nice.
So and they're hoping for something big, and we're trying to get British wrestling back on television over here, and I think they can do it. The company I'm working for, the WAW, the Knight family, they're the first family of wrestling. Their daughter is currently wrestling for the WWE page, and
nice.
their whole family, everybody in the family, as soon as they can walk, they're learning how to take bumps, so the whole family does. Both lads are tremendous talents. Dad was a tremendous talent, Ricky Knight. I worked him back in the day several times. Mom's a wrestler. She's a tremendous ladies wrestler. She gets to travel all over the world. Now they got grandkids wrestling in the ring and stuff like that. So there's and some of these kids, watch out. They're going to be, some of these nights are going to be, they're going to be hitting the big screen one of these days. Either on their own program here in Britain, or also over in the United States. Watch out for those guys.
Yeah, not just because you brought him up, but I honestly think Paige is the best current women's wrestler on TV all around, because I think she's very good in the ring, and she's also a good character and can talk, and that she looks good. So
she's smart. Mm-hmm. She's a smart girl. She's tremendous. From the first time I seen her wrestling with her mom and stuff like that, you could see. And I'll tell you what. They might have been mother and daughter, but I'll tell you, they didn't pull any punches. You know what I mean? They taught their kids well, and they can all look after themselves too. You know what I mean? So, she handles herself tremendously. I mean, if there's one of the few people that I enjoy watching in the WWE, it's her.
Mm-hmm, definitely. And how can people, if they'd like to book you on some shows, how would they contact you?
The thing is I'm actually not. They can go on Twitter, the Real Pia News on Twitter. Mm-hmm. If people start liking me on there, I haven't been using it too much, but if I get a few friends, I don't know, what do you call it, friends request on Twitter. I'm more of a Facebook guy, but
yeah, I am too.
But if people start getting on the Real Pia News on Twitter, they can get in touch with me, and they can start to. And also, I'm in fact, I've got some obligations here in England, and then I've got some stuff down in Germany and Austria later on this year. And I plan on being back in the States this year, and I want to start getting stuff booked up, and I'd like to start booking for 2017 already. And I want to go all over the country, work for that's one thing I really never did, was work the independent scene in the United States. I've run a few shows back home in Nebraska with my tag team partner Mike Halleck and former known as Mantar. We tagged together here in Europe, and we ran a couple shows that were relatively successful in Nebraska, and now we just want to keep that going. I want to keep that going. I want to maybe run some shows back there, but at the same time, I want to get on all the independent shows I can. My career, I can't last forever. And if people want to book Pia News, I might not do the rap, but I'll give it all I got in the ring, and just be happy to be on the bill. And I'm sure some of the old fans might even come out to watch me, and I hope to make a new introduce Pia News to a new generation of wrestling fans.
Mm-hmm. Now, are you familiar with any current American independent wrestlers?
A few of the guys. Have come over here, and I work for All Star. Had a wrestling relationship with All Star Promotions over here, and a lot of those guys came over here. Brian Daniels and loads of guys came through here to come to England to get some experience, because England is in the summertime. I'll give you an example. I start on the 1st of July, and I'll be doing a marathon. I'll do 50 shows by the 1st of September. So it's just going to be, it reminds me of the old days, so it's going to be an insane summer. And what guys come over, they come over for 8 weeks in the summer, and they get that amount of shows. I mean, most of those guys won't get that many shows in the States in 2 years. So it's a great opportunity when they come over here, come over to England, and they get to work with. And I'll tell you what, there is some crazy good talent in England. You'd really be surprised.
Mm-hmm. And I would think it would be good to learn, all different styles, what works in different countries, different areas? Because I would think that would make you a better, rounded wrestler.
Absolutely. Fit Finley's lad, David. I mean, I've known David since he was a baby. My daughter's the same age as he is, and David came over. You know what I mean? And he's still, he's wrestling in New Japan, and he came over here and he did a summer run 2 years ago, and he's learning. He's learning his style. And I'll tell you what, he's as talented as his dad is, and that's scary. That's scary because Fit Finley is probably the best wrestler. Pound for pound, my money on it. I might be a little biased because he's a friend, but I mean, really, just watching Dave work and his smoothness was just great. And it wasn't like watching Flair, where you've seen one Flair match, basically you've seen them all. Mm-hmm. Finley would go in there, and each time he wrestled, it would be a different match. He's forgotten more about wrestling than guys like myself and a lot of other people will ever know.
Mm-hmm. Have you seen Scott Hall's son wrestle?
No, I haven't. I haven't seen him. I've seen pictures of him, but I haven't actually watched any of his matches and stuff like that. He looks like a big lad.
He's very big.
Yeah. Is he?
I think he definitely has potential. I think right now he's very green, and he kind of emulates his dad in the ring, which is totally fine. But I definitely think he has a lot of potential down the road.
Well, first thing he's got to do is find his own. He's got to find his own rhythm. You know what I mean? Don't try to emulate. Try to be yourself. And he's going. Scott. I mean, like I said, I know Scott for a long time. Taught him everything to be honest with you. No, but no, I've known Scott for a lot of years, and I mean, it's a good place to start. And I mean, Scott got over, and if I'm sure if he gets enough matches in, he's going to be a tremendous talent, just like his dad was.
Yeah, I think he's doing pretty well for himself currently in Japan. He's part of the
young David Finley said he was over there, so.
Yeah, I think being a big young American helps you get over in Japan too.
No question about it. I was fortunate to work for New Japan. I was over there. I got to work Antonio Inoki. What a pleasure that was. I was thinking when Ali died a couple weeks ago, I was just thinking, wow, I've got one thing in common with Ali. I got to fight Antonio Inoki, but he wasn't laying on his back when he was fighting me.
No, like he wasn't doing the crab walk.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you just mentioned but that I would assume that just has to be a big. What's the atmosphere like when you're in front of a Japanese crowd with Antonio Inoki in the ring?
Well, it's very subdued. You know what I mean? They're a very appreciative crowd. They're not like American crowds or European crowds. They don't sit there. They don't cheer and boo and yay and all that stuff. They clap when they see something good. It doesn't matter if the heel or the babyface does it. They're impressed with talent. You know what I mean? On both sides of the ring. They're very and they're very respectful crowd. You know what I mean? They're very respectful of wrestlers and stuff. So
yeah, I have to ask, what was it like tagging with Elegante?
Dude, it's you know what? I've been knocked on the head too much. I vaguely remember it at all. But that guy standing next to him, oh my God, he was so tall, man. Just such a big man. But what a lovely fellow he was. He was really a lovely guy. But the size of his hands, you wouldn't want to make him angry because his fist was about the same size as my melon, and my melon is huge. So you wouldn't want to get hit with a fist that big.
Ishman, another question from the fine people at the head.
I'm not answering. I've had enough.
What? You gotta answer a question from the
All right, go ahead.
It's a good one.
Answer.
I know your buddy Robbie Brookside. He's not a big fan of ZZ, but tell us how great ZZ is.
Oh my God.
Who's ZZ?
Incher's like the president of the ZZ fan club.
Oh, ZZ, I don't know.
He was on Tough Enough, and Robbie Brookside, he hated him, but I thought the man was good.
You know what? Robbie Brookside is, that's his own problem, because if you can't get along with Robbie Brookside, then you've got a real issue. There's so much knowledge in Robbie's head, man. People should, everybody everybody down there should just shut up and listen to him. I don't care who this is easy is, and no disrespect to the kid, but
You don't need to
you know,
trust me.
everybody needs to shut up and listen to that guy, because if he's talking, there's something interesting coming out of his mouth, and he's got stories about everything. I'll tell you, he can tell stories until the cows come home. He's fun to be around, and he's just a great guy. Like I said, I can't imagine somebody not liking him. Maybe it's because he put him through the ringer. Maybe that's why.
I think they've made up because he took him out hunting alligators, like wrestling them and all that.
Oh, I think I seen a video on YouTube or on TV where Robbie was on one of those airboats or something like that. So
yeah,
that's
was
good for them. Good for them.
Yeah, not only is Incher the president of the ZZ fan club, he's also the only member.
Yeah. I went through that for a few years too. I was the only member of the PN News Club, so now, I know all about that stuff.
Do you still have the tights?
No, I'm gonna have some new ones made, man. Let's call it ring gear, because tight sounds so dancing.
Yeah.
I'm not a ballerina. I might be as light on the feet as a ballerina, but let's call it ring gear. Let's call it
better. Yeah. Get the big gold chain and the.
Yeah, I'm gonna have some new stuff made when I come back to the States. So I'll be rocking the neon. I'll be rocking the neon colors when I get back.
Mm-hmm.
So when people are booking me, they'll get the PN News with the original gear minus the hair.
I know all about that.
Yeah. You got nothing going for you, do you? 1 inch bicep,
not really.
bald, 1 inch biceps. What's that all about?
I can't even find like a fan of ZZ.
Jeez, wow, dude, you're killing me.
He does have pretty good back hair going on, though.
Yeah, I got a little bit of back hair, but
Yeah, well, you know what? You just let it grow out, and you can swoop that over the top.
That's a good look.
Jack combed it for me last time we were at the fan fest.
Oh, well, that's brotherly love, isn't it?
Rupert Pupkin, he wants to know your favorite person to work with in WCW.
That's a good question, Rupert. I got to work a lot of great talent there, and I probably had about 5 or 6 matches. I enjoyed working Vader because Vader was athletic as hell, and we both had similar backgrounds. We both started in the AWA, trained by Brad Rangens. He was over here for the CWA and stuff like that, and there was a mutual respect. And I know not everybody gets along with Leon, but I certainly did, and we had some good matches in the WCW. So when I was there, that was probably my favorite guy to work with.
Nice. I'm glad you said that, because I'm a huge Vader fan. To me, for my money, that's the best big man.
Great gimmick. It was tremendous game. No, he's the best big man after me. Thank you very much.
There you go.
But yeah, tremendous. The gimmick was over. He was. It was at for a time. It was the best gimmick in professional wrestling in the 90s.
Yeah. I miss the big guys in wrestling. I mean, I know there's tall guys and stuff.
I do too. I do too. That was something I was thinking about earlier. Sorry, I cut you off there.
That's all right.
But I was thinking about that too. There are no more big men. There's in wrestling. It's all about these. I hear people talking about. I hear kids talking about work rate. I hear guys talking about different stuff than we talked about. It's not about work rate. It's about working the crowd. A lot of these kids today, they're younger, and instead of working the public, they're working each other. I work the crowd. And it's not about individual egos. It's about the show. That's something I learned over the years. It's know your spot, know where you're at, and it's how can I best help the show, not what can I do for myself. And a lot of kids today, they're a lot smaller. The wrestling is downsized. I really do miss the big guys, because when big guys walk through an airport, I don't need to wear a wrestling t-shirt for somebody to ask me if I'm a professional wrestler. But these kids that weigh under 200 pounds, they have to wear wrestling shirts or company logos for people to to know that they're a professional wrestler. And I don't mean that as in disrespect to these guys, because they do get in the ring and they work their ass off and stuff like that. But the business has surely changed, and certainly changed. And what they're forgetting, it's like in boxing. People go out. People, the middleweights are throwing all the punches, but people pay to see the heavyweights. And that's the way it always was in wrestling. The smaller guys worked their nuts off, and the bigger guys were the ones that put asses in seats. And but you needed all of that. You need that combination of everything to make a show work.
Yeah, if you just have one or the other, it's gonna be. I mean, even like I'll watch wrestling, and it's nothing against any of the guys, but if you see nothing but quote unquote, great in-ring matches, even that makes you bored after a while. I like to see a variety on the show.
Well, I do like to see it, and you know what I really miss is I miss the brawling. Everybody's a high spot wrestler nowadays. Whatever happened to the good old brawler? Those kind of things. And these high spots. Everybody's watching too much lucha libre because they're doing like 5-minute high spots. Let the people breathe. Let the people give the time people to react to what you've just done. And I that's why I keep reiterating to younger kids today is, guys, if you think you're going too slow down. That's something Nick Bockwinkel told me, when I was working Brian Knobs back in the AWA. He came, we were opening a match, and he came back and he goes, "Great match, guys, but you know what? You guys need to slow down. If you think you're going too fast, slow down." And it's something that always stuck in my head. Now, it took me a while to learn how to slow down, and then my knees went bad, and then I had to slow down. But it was just something that always stuck in my head. When a guy like Nick Bockwinkel tells you slow down, you need to take notice.
Yeah. We had Nick Bockwinkel on a couple times. Great guest, obviously.
Yeah.
Now, that's cool that you have a story with Nick Bockwinkel. Were you around him very much?
Like I said, I was just there a short time, and the transition from Nick Bockwinkel to Kurt Hennig was taking place at the time where they dropped the belt to Kurt.
Yeah.
So in the Cow Palace, I believe it was Cow Palace out in San Francisco, for me, I wasn't around him. The only time I was really around the guy was in the dressing room. But I'd always ask him, "Hey, could you watch my match?" You know what I mean? You'd always ask guys. And one thing I did, I always did too, is when I was younger, I always watched the matches because I wanted to learn. It's all about learning. And the best way to do that is to take in as much as you can. When you've got guys that know how to work a crowd, you want to go out and watch those guys perform. To make yourself better. There's a kid over here, he's not a kid anymore. He's almost done as many matches as I do. He gets the most amount of work. Guy named God, my head's gone. This is how old I have been dropped on my head too many times. James Mason. He wrestles as James Mason over here. He doesn't have a tremendous look, but the crowd loves him when he gets out there. And the guy has a motor like you can't believe, and he can just go. He wrestles in his sleep. He's so smooth. But when all these Americans come over, I always say, watch James. Go watch James. Go watch one of his matches. See what he's doing. You know what I mean? Just unbelievable talent.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned your knees there. What kind of injuries have you had over the years?
Oh, torn hamstring, torn rotator cuffs. I've landed on my head outside the ring a couple times. I don't know what's wrong with my neck. I haven't had it looked at, but there's definitely some issues there. I've had a hip problem for the last 20 years. My hip has it's probably needs a replacement, but it's you got dropping another name here, Sika Samoa. When I first met him in Bremen in 1988, he said, "You got to listen to the bones, brother." And unfortunately, I wasn't listening to my bones, but they've been screaming at me for years.
Nope. Were those things from one particular thing, or is it just you think?
No, it's just wear and tear over the years. After a while, that's why I stopped doing my broken wrestler splash, and I went to a Santon, or Cannonball as I call it. Mm-hmm. I went to doing a Cannonball off the top or off the second, and because my knees were just killing me from landing on him, protecting the guy I was splashing.
Yeah.
So I switched that, and then all the Santon did was make my hip deteriorate more. So, but I'm doing what I love. So, believe me, I'm not bitching. I know what I got myself in for. Wrestling is a passion. It's something, you do it because you love it, So.
And you brought up Vader earlier. I think you're in much better shape than I remember from PN News. You kind of look like a Vader, like in his prime. You get the big the shoulders and.
Oh, I had a time in like 2000, between 2000 and 2004. I was about 350, and I was benching 300 kilos. I was probably in the shape of my life, and I was really moving around even better. I mean, I was in insane shape then. You know what I mean? I always had a little bit of spare. I had a spare tire around the midsection, but my shoulders and chest and my arms and everything like that. I mean, it was I got to say that was the best I'd ever looked. And then about 2008, I was almost in that same shape again. But then about 2009, 2010, I started developing issues with my knees and my hip, just constant pain. So I don't move around as well as I used to. However, right now I'm in the process of dropping my weight again. So hopefully with all this work I'll be doing this summer, I should be back down to around 350 or 360 where I feel most comfortable.
Happy Orchid brought up earlier. It says on your Wikipedia page that you hurt the Angel of Death. Is there any truth to that?
I think I did. It was an issue. It was an unfortunate accident that happened. I did a splash off the top rope, and he was notorious for having bad knees. And I came down more on his thigh, and it basically hyperextended the knee back. And I mean, it was a sad situation. Unfortunately, accidents happen, and I definitely didn't mean it. This isn't, the wrestling isn't ballet, unfortunately. And like I said, I mean, I've got to live with that, but like, it wasn't an intentional thing, It was just a freak little thing.
Things happen in the wrestling business.
I've never hurt anybody else with that splash ever again. It was really a freak little accident, unfortunately.
Now, you'd mentioned, a lot of guys that were in WCW at that time, and a lot of them went on to, huge fame, like Steve Austin, and DDP, who got into wrestling later in life. Did you expect him to make it so big?
Well, I gave him his first televised match. We wrestled in Tacoma. No, not Tacoma. Topeka, Canada. Topeka, Kansas. And it was for one of those Clash of Champions, and I gave him his first televised match, like a 4-minute match. So I'm like the only guy DDP hasn't pinned. So just let you know. But the thing is, did I think he was going to be a great talent? He was great on the microphone. He definitely had great on the microphone. I remember coming back to Germany and watching a match with him and Ric Flair, of all people, and I watched the match and I just thought, wow, that is just rotten. You know what I mean? And how can you not have a good match with Ric Flair? But DD's one of those guys. He's got to go over everything. But when he started getting over, I don't really think it surprised me, and I was happy for him. It was happy for him. DDP always had some good advice. And he was sound. So when I see him doing that yoga stuff, I should start trying that stuff.
Asset, yeah.
But I mean, I guess it wasn't really a surprise because he had, he had 2 out of 3 attributes, and he really wanted it. You know what I mean? So he worked his, he wasn't no spring chicken either. So
yeah.
So he's a little long in the tooth, but he worked his butt off and made a go of it, and so he got his little run, and more power to him.
Yeah. I always thought he was a good manager back in AWA and
sure, no question about it.
Bad Company was great, had a great finish. Yeah. And then but when he became a wrestler, at first it was he still was a cool character, but it was when he started doing the feud with Trying to Be Bad. I think it was when. I really started to hey, this guy, both guys I thought were very good.
Yeah. Yeah, and Johnny B. Bad when he was in WCW, he was pretty green at the beginning, but yeah, he came into his own, and he's another guy that worked hard to make himself a better wrestler. I think he should have stayed with the Gimmick.
I
The
agree.
Gimmick was just fantastic. You know what I mean? I know.
Yeah.
I don't think he was comfortable doing it, but that Gimmick was great.
Yeah, and he did it well, and and it set him apart from everyone else. And I think when he
I'm a bad man.
yeah, it was good. It was good stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm a big fan of the theme song as well.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh God. You're bringing back memories. Everything's coming back now.
Were you
It's
around?
too much. It's too much. My brain can't take it.
Were you around Abby at all during that time? Because I knew.
Oh yeah. I was around Abby. I mean, that's one thing I screwed up because Abby said, "Well, give me your pictures." He said, "Give me your pictures." He wanted me to, go over there and partner with him for All Japan after like WCW, and then I ran into him again in Puerto Rico when Dick Murdoch booked me down to Puerto Rico. And and you know what? I didn't get him the pictures, and I really regret that because Kamala 2 ended up partnering with him, and Kamala 2 got a nice run out of that deal. You know what I mean? So it was it was. I always regret not getting him the pictures. You know what I mean? I just never. I didn't stay in touch with him, but I'm terrible at staying in touch, man. I'm the worst. You talking to me on this phone like this long. This is a long time because I'm usually on the phone and I go, yep, okay, all right, see ya. You know what I mean? I'm not a big telephone talker. You know what I mean? I'd rather have my conversations face to face because I don't know what kind of gestures you're making there in the studio.
Right, yeah.
Listen to this loser with the L on the forehead. Come on, give me a break, man.
Yeah, that's how I am with the intro off the show. He'll call me up, and I'll just like, yeah, whatever. And just say,
oh yeah, I know he is.
So another quick question intro here from Facebook, and then I know it's very late for Mr. News.
Rupert, he also wants to know, who did you travel with back in the days?
Well, when like I said, when it was the Armstrongs and the and Tracy Smothers, Scott Hall, and Diamond, Dallas Page, Matt Bourne, guys like that. When I was in WCW, when I was out in Portland, I got a story for you. Yeah. When I was out in Portland, I was traveling with the Grappler Lynn Denton and Buddy Rose and Colonel De Beers.
Nice.
And those guys were great. And then in Germany, you didn't travel. You stayed on site. You know what I mean? We all had campers, and we'd either stay by the venue or we'd stay at a camping site near, outside. Like we stay in Vienna, we'd stay in a camping site like 20 minutes outside of town. It was just absolutely just gorgeous. Austria is like one of the most beautiful countries in the world. If you haven't been there, I recommend it. You know what I mean? It's just really beautiful there. And we used to, I mean, what a day off. You'd sit there until like 5 o'clock at night. Then you'd drive into Vienna, you'd wrestle, and then you'd be home. You'd be back at your camper for 10:30 at night. You know what I mean? It was just unbelievable. It was like you weren't even working.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, to get back to this story in Portland, so the Grappler, he just bought this Pathfinder when Pathfinders came out in the '87, and he paid like $17,000 or something for it. And he goes, so we're coming back from Medford, which is the bottom part of Oregon, and we're heading up to Portland. So at the time we got we each got our case of beer and we're drinking away, and Ed's got a kind of a weak bladder, so he always used to get these big 42-ounce, two 42-ounce Pabst Blue Ribbons or something like that, and that's what he'd drink. And Buddy wasn't a drinker. Buddy would get a big big gulp full of ice, and he'd get a couple liters of chocolate milk, and so that's what he'd be drinking. So me and Lenny, we're drinking, and we're sitting in the front seat, and we're going down the road, and Buddy's winding me up. He's got me going. You know what I mean? I'm green and I'm biting, as you do. So he's winding me up, and all of a sudden I'm like, I just get hot. I just got hot, and I just pulled a beer out of my case, and I squeezed it, and it wasn't even open, and it shattered, and it just went all over the front, and it's all over Lenny. It's all over me, and I'm yelling, "Buddy, shut the F up! Shut up!" So I've lost my head, right? And like he's all pissed off because it's a brand new vehicle, right? He's only had it for less than a week. So now it's kind of got quiet. Lenny's not happy. He's just driving. And, well, Ed's got this weak bladder, so he's got a super big gulp cup. And instead of stopping, he just keeps peeing into the cup, right? So eventually, nobody said anything for a little while, and we're going over the mountains, so we can't get any radio stations in Southern Oregon there. So it's really quiet in there, and it was only an AM FM radio. It wasn't no cassette or nothing in there. And Lenny looks up, and he looks in the rearview mirror, and he sees Ed's concentrating on pissing, and Ed looks up and he locks eyes with Lenny, and then he starts chuckling, and the pee starts dripping out over the sides of the cup, and like Lenny's going, UMF, boom, and he pulls the car over. So he pulls the car over out to the side, and it was only a 2-door. So like I had to get out for Ed to push the seat forward so he could get. I thought he was just going to get out, but he pushed the seat forward, and all he does is he takes that big cup. And he throws it out, and it all lands all over my feet and everything like that. You know what I mean? I'm just like, my feet are full of Ed's piss, and I'm like, son of a bitch. And Buddy's in the back seat. Buddy's in the back seat, and he's beside himself. He's laughing so hard. You know what I mean? He just can't. I said, Buddy, shut up and give me the damn towel. So my towel was laying on top of the bags in the back. So I took the towel, and I'm wiping. It was a hotel towel. Don't tell the hotels I stole it. But so I'm wiping all this Ed's piss off my feet and stuff like that. So I've got that all wiped down. And now Buddy's still laughing his head off. So I take the piss-full towel and I throw it, and it hits Buddy in the face. And Buddy starts puking chocolate milk all over the place, man. And Lenny's going, "You son of a bitches! This is a $17,000 dumpster. What have you guys done to me?" You know what I mean? Oh God! And we drove another 2 hours in complete silence. You know what I mean? Before anybody said a word. We were like in Salem. We were like 40 minutes out of Portland before somebody said another word, man. But God, what a trip that was! That was just insane, man. Chocolate milk, piss, and beer all over this brand new vehicle, man.
Oh God!
Not a happy camper.
That's awesome. Well, we cannot top that, and I know it's like, what is it, 2 a.m. for you?
No, it's later than that.
Oh.
It's
2:30?
3:27 right now.
All right. Well, it's been awesome talking to you, and we'd love to have you back sometime.
Hey, I appreciate that. I want to thank you, both of you guys, Jackie and 1 Inch. You guys have been fun talking to you. I'd like to thank all the fans who took the time to get in and ask some great questions. Again, if anybody wants to book me in the future, you get in touch with me over on Twitter, over the Real PN News. You can also find me on Facebook. My face, it's hard to get on me on Facebook because I've got my friend limit is pretty full, but I'm using my real name on Facebook, which is Paul New, N-E-U. So like I said, but if anybody's interested, I'm taking bookings for the end of 16 and the beginning of 17 already. So
awesome. Yeah, everyone here in the chat's already saying that really enjoyed the interview. Great interview. And,
fantastic.
And Scotty says he hopes to see you in Nashville, Tennessee on your U.S. tour.
Oh, great. Yeah, I hope so. Tell him to get in touch with his local promoters to get a hold of me.
Excellent. Thanks, man.
All right, guys. Thanks again.
Hey, Monkey, it's me, DDP, Diamond Dallas Page, and you're listening to InYourHeadOnline.com. Don't even think about getting off, or you will feel the bang!